Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as we get straight into it and discuss urgent issues for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. Goalkeeper is definitely something we need to talk about, especially after another bad performance from Dean Henderson last night, but also the midfield issue. We are literally one injury to Christian Eriksen away from a real issue at Manchester United, and it is an urgent issue, and one that I think will have to be looked at in the January transfer window. Also, I want to say that, Glazers out movement needs to continue, will continue, but the Glazers, all the noise is coming out is that the Glazers will keep spending even in January, which is very unlike them. The Glazers don't want to spend money, they want to take money, but their tactics when in trouble, when they need to keep hold of this football club, is to spend. We've seen it, the evidence is there. They're fishing around, looking for scraps, going for people like Rabiot and Arnautovic. Suddenly, there's pressure on the club to sell to somebody who wants to run the club properly. What do? They suddenly find £140 million under the bed and buy Casemiro and Antony. I don't think that's going to stop in January. I don't think it's going to stop next summer. I think the Glazers do want to keep hold of this football club. And if there is a slim chance of them being able to do that, the best way to do that is to buy players, buy success, buy positivity. And I think that they will spend in January. I wouldn't normally expect us to spend in January, but thinking about it over the last few days, I think that they probably will. But look, let's bring it back to the football for a moment. For a long moment, actually. I want to talk about the keeper situation. I really want to get into this. I think that... I want to talk about the midfield as well. I want to talk about the Eriksen issue. But should we start? Look, it's a Saturday. We'll start where we want to start. I want to just quickly start off with the goalkeeping situation. I had the match on last night. I was keeping an eye on a couple of things. And obviously, I think, was it 3 goals that Forest conceded in the space of 5 minutes? They collapsed against Bournemouth as well. Look, there is an ongoing debate, and I think it's becoming less and less, that Dean Henderson is the heir to the De Gea throne and that he deserves it. I've never really understood this Dean Henderson fan club. I don't think he's a particularly bad goalkeeper, but I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to fight the likes of De Gea, Ederson, Alisson, Lloris. I just don't think he's on that level. I really think Nick Pope and Jordan Pickford and Aaron Ramsdale are all better than him. There's 3 better English goalkeepers, and I wouldn't want any of those 3 playing for Manchester United, to be honest with you. I know exactly what goalkeeper I want to play for Manchester United, and I'll come to that in a minute. But Dean Henderson, every time I watch him, mentality is key for a goalkeeper, and I don't know why this doesn't get exposed enough. I'm old enough to remember keepers years ago, beyond, you're talking like David Seaman and Peter Schmeichel and people like this. And if you read their books or you'll read their interviews, they will tell you that the goalkeeping situation is as much about saving shots as it is the concentration in your head. To be an elite goalkeeper, you've got to be calm, controlled, focused, because you might have to make one save in 45 minutes and you've got to be ready, sharp, keep yourself warm. I don't know whether you've ever been to a football match. You'll often see a goalkeeper when the ball's up the other end. They're not on their phones checking Instagram. They're doing stretches. They're running from one 6-yard box to another. They're keeping themselves ready. Very interesting next time you're at a game and the action's down the other end. Watch what the goalkeeper's doing. They're keeping themselves focused. They're keeping themselves loose. Liam, welcome to the Members Club. What's your thoughts on Arsenal this season so far, says Twat? A bit of a twat comment, really. I don't want to talk about Arsenal at the moment. So, look, with the goalkeeper, the mentality is really important. And I look at Dean Henderson, and ever since that interview he did talking about United, and I've seen him play a few games for Forest this season, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, his mentality is completely wrong. And we spoke to Ben Foster about this on the show a couple of weeks ago. Ben Foster was saying when he's celebrating saving a penalty when his team's 1-0 down, he's making it too much about him proving people wrong than about being a concentrated goalkeeper who's trying to be a team player. I think his head's gone. And I saw it when he used to come and play for Man United. He's running out of the box to try and show everyone he's a sweeper keeper. He's getting his angles wrong. He's trying too hard. And when he was at Sheffield United, I think he was showing potential. But I think now, and for the last couple of years, I see a goalkeeper that's so locked into this obsession that he is one of the best goalkeepers in the world, that he's, the team he plays for, the resentment towards United, it's just taking over. And look, again yesterday, I think there's another goal, at least one, that he should be saving, maybe 2. He is not the goalkeeper I think should be for Manchester United. Maybe that will change, but for me now, he is not the goalkeeper. But what is 100% true is that we do need a goalkeeper to come in next summer to work with De Gea and maybe replace De Gea. That we need that because of the age profile of De Gea and the ongoing, acceptance that, De Gea is improving, but can he become the goalkeeper that Ten Hag wants? Probably not. And in the next couple of years, he probably needs to change that out. I don't think Dean Henderson's that goalkeeper. I really don't. And actually, you know what? I don't think he should be that goalkeeper because for me, there are many better goalkeepers than Dean Henderson that suit Ten Hag's style of play. Now, some people are talking about Oblak being that goalkeeper because he's out of contract next summer with Atletico Madrid. Some people are mentioning him. God, no. No. It should not be Oblak. I mean, if you know your football, and I'm sure many of you do, Oblak is basically De Gea. He doesn't come out of his box much. He's not a sweeper keeper. And, coming for crosses, I mean, he's reasonable, but he's everything that people moan about David De Gea about. Like distribution, coming out of his box, coming for crosses. Oblak's a brilliant shot stopper, but so's David De Gea. And I think that you can argue that Oblak's better than De Gea if you want to. I'm not interested in that. But what I'm saying is, the profile of the goalkeeper has to be different to David De Gea. They've got to be a goalkeeper that really, is proactive, that comes out of the box, that's a ball-playing goalkeeper. And I don't think Dean Henderson's that. He might be better at it than De Gea, but I don't think he's the elite one that we need. And, I look at Oblak's out of contract next summer. I don't see the point in that because you're just getting another De Gea, a brilliant shot stopper that actually you've got to get a goalkeeper that suits the Ten Hag system like a glove. And instead of Oblak, I would actually go for someone like, I'd go for someone like Lafont in France. I think he's early 20s, 6'5", good goalkeeper, but, accepted to be a really modern goalkeeper. Now, if you brought someone like Lafont in, I think he plays, is it Naples or something like that? If you bring someone like him in, and I don't profess to know loads about him, but I do know that he's a young goalkeeper who's a ball-playing goalkeeper. And you bring him into Manchester United, and next season he's at United working with De Gea. And then in the next 2 years, 3 years, he becomes the first-team goalkeeper. That's way better. And I think his contract is out. I think Lafont's out of contract, not this summer, but the next summer. So there's a deal there to be done. There's a few other goalkeepers we could look at as well, but that's what I think we should be looking at. Those types of goalkeepers. Unai Simon, Sanchez at Brighton, what's his name? Maybe Meslier at Leeds. Those type of goalkeepers. That's what I think we should be looking at. When did you join the Lord of the Rings cast as Elrond, says Michael. Oh, I've had this before, young Ned Stark and all that. Mark Henderson is all mouth, which anyone can do. De Gea does his talking on the pitch as Andy and Bruno. Ramsdale is already a higher level than De Gea, whose main quality is shot stopping. Ramsdale is a better all-rounder, says Zane. I like Ramsdale. I don't think he's massive. I don't think he's... I like Ramsdale. I don't think he's amazingly better, and I don't think he's a better shot stopper than David De Gea either. So, I would be happy with Ramsdale if I was Arsenal, but he's not somebody that I go, oh my God, Arsenal have got Ramsdale and we've got De Gea. I don't. If you're talking about someone like Alisson, definitely. I think Alisson's unfortunately a Liverpool player, and I think he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In fact, it's well worth watching the members video. If you are a member, check it out. I did a video yesterday comparing De Gea this season to Alisson, Ederson, Lloris, and we brought Henderson stats in. Really, really interesting on that. So look, if I don't think any of you lot would think about Oblak. This guy, he ain't thinking about Oblak. Not in a million years. If you know Erik Ten Hag and the way he wants to play football, he will not want Oblak because it's just basically bringing in another De Gea. And for me, De Gea is the perfect goalkeeper to have at United in year one of Ten Hag's system. And I think he will agree with that. He wants stability. He wants a leader. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, you've got to use De Gea alongside a younger goalkeeper, and there are plenty out there, and there's some good names coming out there. David Raya is coming out there as well. Manion is coming out there as well. Mannion, I can't probably pronounce his name. There's a lot of goalkeepers out there. Robert Sanchez or Diego Costa from Porto would be good, says Lars. Yeah, I mean, I don't know loads about Costa, to be honest with you. Sanchez, obviously, at Brighton. These are the sort of goalkeepers we need to go for. If I was Ten Hag, I'd look at Henderson and go, no thanks. No thanks. Even if you could dribble from your own goal and put it in the top corner, not a chance. Your mentality over the last few weeks has been completely wrong. You know, banging the ground, making mistakes, making it about you. No, that's mentality as a goalkeeper is absolutely what it's all about. And I think where people have gone wrong on this is they've turned it into De Gea versus Henderson, which is ridiculous because De Gea's actually done stuff in a Man United shirt and deserves respect and had a good season last year. But what people get wrong is I think people think that De Gea needs to be our goalkeeper for the next 5 years, and I don't. We do need another goalkeeper to come in, 100%. I just don't believe it's Henderson. You start talking to me about Lafont or Sanchez or Simon or Amanian and all these people, and I'll go, yeah, that's exactly the sort of goalkeeper we need to bring in. Bring him in next summer. Let him have a year with De Gea to get used to it with no pressure. Give him some Europa League or Champions League games or whatever like that. Let them start competing. You know, you might even take De Gea's game up a bit. And then, you know, longer term, you've got your goalkeeper then. Watch Arteta develop Ramsdale. He'll be the English Buffon, says Zayn Miasi. Thank you very much for that, Zayn. And thank you very much for the super chats coming in. So look, I think that is an issue and I think it needs to be resolved. Did you see Henderson after Fulham's third last night? Looks like he was impersonating a referee. Perhaps that should be his next career move, says DJ. I just think everything he does at the moment is about him. The interviews, the way he reacts to things. It's like he's not a team player. And that's a big red flag. And the things he said about United in that interview was a big red flag. What did David De Gea say in the press conference this week when asked about the whole Henderson thing? I don't talk about that sort of stuff. Professional. You know, it's about this. Dean Henderson, like many other United players last season, needs to buy some mirrors, look in the mirror and look at what a professional sports person does. Keep his gob shut, be a team player and focus on the team, not the individual. Why not replace De Gea with a first team ready keeper like Trapp and not renew his contract at $375,000, says Karan. Trapp's an interesting one. Dejan makes a point about thoughts on Sommer. I quite liked that Kevin Trapp signing and I think his contract's out of... I think Lafont and Trapp are out of contract in 2024. So next summer, if they don't sign contracts, they'll be going for cheap. They're the sort of goalkeepers we should be looking at. The modern goalkeeper. We brought De Gea in from Europe. We brought Schmeichel in from Europe. You don't need a British goalkeeper. If they're a good British goalkeeper, yes. But, you know, there are some good deals that can be done there. Definitely. I want to talk about the midfield issue because that's what I was meant to be talking about first, but I think I really enjoyed that goalkeepers discussion, so thank you everybody, and I'm sure it will continue. There is an urgent issue that Erik Ten Hag needs to resolve, and it is the midfield issue. For all the plaudits and all the praise which Christian Eriksen undoubtedly deserves, there is an issue at Manchester United, and it's an urgent one. And you look at 13 games we've got to play between the start of October and the start of November, and you think, well, there's absolutely no way, even if he stays fit, that Christian Eriksen can play all those games. And if he doesn't play those games, do we put ourselves... And we had a glimpse against Sociedad. When Christian Eriksen doesn't play, that team becomes what it did last year. You can't get the ball from the midfield to the attack. And that's what Christian Eriksen's been so good at. And that's clearly why Erik Ten Hag wanted Frenkie de Jong. Christian Eriksen is not playing as a number 10, he's playing as a midfielder and he is linking the midfield to the attack, which is something we've been bad at for probably 2 or 3 years. So Christian Eriksen is fundamental to that team, absolutely, but he also exposes an urgent need to bring in somebody else who can do that role. I personally still think that Donny van der Beek may be able to do it. I think it's 50-50. I can't sit here honestly as a fan of Donny and say he can do the Eriksen job. Evidence suggests that maybe he can't. You know, he can't get in the team when he's fit, etc. So maybe Eriksen, maybe Donny can't do it. Frenkie de Jong would have been used to doing it. He wanted Eriksen and de Jong, as I said last night. So we need another midfielder. It is the most urgent position to be resolved in the January transfer window. And I do believe we're going to do business in the January transfer window. As I say, I wouldn't normally. You know, we will be linked to players and then we don't do any business. The same thing happened last year. We were talking about we need a striker, we need a midfielder in January. We were talking about people like Alvarez, Zakaria, Kamara, all these players. They never happened. And, you know, the club ideally doesn't want to spend money, as we know, under the Glazers. But they will spend money because Ten Hag needs money to be spent. And also, he also has a situation where we all know the Glazers are in danger. And if they are trying to keep hold of the club, they're going to spend to keep hold of it. That's what they do. Short-term pain, long-term gain. If they can keep United for another 10 years, it's going to be worth another few billion, isn't it? So it's worth spending a few million now to make a few billion in 10 years. And I would liken the Glazers at Man United at the moment to, you've seen these cartoons where, they're literally clawing onto thin air to stop themselves falling. I think the Glazers are doing that at the moment. And the way they'll do that is by chucking money at the problem to try and stay in post. I don't think it's going to work, but it hopefully will benefit Ten Hag in buying the players that he desperately needs. The interesting thing is, what can you do in January? People will talk about Frenkie de Jong. We have to bring a midfielder in January. I'm absolutely convinced that this is an urgent issue, and I don't think Frenkie de Jong's a January signing. So what do? You could wait for Frenkie de Jong till the summer. You could still go for Frenkie de Jong in the summer, but you need somebody to come in January, because ultimately we play 13 games before the World Cup, and then after the World Cup we play from Boxing Day to the end of May every 3 or 4 days. You can't do that with just Christian Eriksen. There has to be a Christian Eriksen alternative to help with injury and rotation. The biggest asset of Alisson is his command of the box and ridiculous 1v1 ability, which is crucial in a high line. We cannot ignore that apart from passion, says Michael Teammate. Thank you very much for that one. And I loved it when Schmeichel used to hurl it over arm to the other half, straight to our winger to take on the fullback. What a keeper, says Glenn. And Chris has been a member for 3 months. Thanks very much for joining, Chris. So James Ward-Prowse says Punit. You never know. Nemanja says, what about Bellingham? We're talking about January. We're talking about January here, and Nate says that the centre-back is urgent as well. Liam's been a member for 3 months as well. But Jack D, I was waiting for this. Go and get Tielemans. His contract expires in the summer, and Mohammed says go and get Tielemans as well. I actually do think that Tielemans is the one to go and get, or it certainly puts him quite high up on the list. The reason I say that is that you're talking about January, and look, we will do this again. Like we do it every year. We will be saying in January, if we don't buy a player in January, we're jeopardising winning the Europa League and getting top 4. I guarantee those words will come out of my mouth and they'll come out of your mouth in January. If we don't buy a midfielder now, we are jeopardising top 4 and the Europa League. And 100% that will happen. The volume of games is ridiculous. This season is a complete marathon. It's an endurance test. It's about stamina. It's about rotation options. We cannot go into January and go, we'll wait until the summer. We might do that. The club would love to do it, but we have to buy a midfielder in January. And that midfielder for me has to be somebody that comes into the squad and really doesn't upset the apple cart, because what you don't want to do is buy, and what you can't do anyway, if you buy a Bellingham or a De Jong, they've got to go straight into the team. How do you solve that dynamic when you've got Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro, McTominay, maybe Donny van de Beek by that stage, all getting regular first team time, and then you bring in, I don't know, Bellingham or De Jong and Eriksen sat on the bench? That's not what we need. That's not what Ten Hag wants. They're summer signings as well. You can't sign De Jong or Bellingham in January. That just can't happen. And they're also summer signings because they need to go straight in your first team, and that's when you tend to make big changes to your team. So what United actually need is a Youri Tielemans. They need somebody to come in who really, they're moving from Leicester. They're basically a free signing because they'll be very cheap in January. His contract's up in the summer. And they're also a player that fits what we need, but doesn't necessarily take Eriksen out of the team. They become that rotational player. Now, some people will be screaming Tielemans is not good enough, and I would say hold your horses a minute here. I think he's absolutely perfect for what we need. It's no shock to me that Arsenal want him, because he'd fit the same profile for Arsenal as well. He's a player that would come in and might take a first team slot, but more likely starts on the bench and works his way into the team, and also being coached. If Dalot and McTominay and Rashford can be improved massively under Ten Hag, what can happen to somebody like Tielemans under Ten Hag, who's spent the last few years playing in a counter-attacking team for Brendan Rodgers, where you defend a lot and you're just looking to thread balls through to Vardy or Harvey Barnes? Playing in a possession-based team where he can, I look at Tielemans and I think he's an all-rounder. He's a quintessential at number 8. He can put a tackle in. He's got good stamina. He can carry the ball. He can pass the ball, and he can score a goal if you need him. But I think Tielemans would be perfect as the Eriksen rotational player, the sharer of the role. If Eriksen needs a rest, you play Tielemans, and that's what you want in every position. You want 2 players that game to game you can go, I'm going to start him. He comes on for half an hour. I'm going to give you a rest. He's starting. We've got it at left back, more or less, with Malacia and Shaw. We haven't got it at right back. We haven't really got it at centre back. We haven't got it at goalkeeper yet. We haven't really got it up front. We've probably not got it on the wings. We haven't really got... We've got it at CDM at the moment with McTominay and Casemiro, and we've got it at left back. The whole team needs to have it, but Eriksen is so important to the team. That's the one position I think we need to do first. Forget De Jong, Bellingham all the way, says Robin. Do I think Ronaldo is going to stay? Philip says Tielemans and good stamina. Laugh out loud, says Philippe. I think his Tielemans. Must is saying that his work rate is horrible as well. I think about Tielemans before he came to Leicester. I think about Tielemans when I've seen him playing for Belgium a couple of years ago. I think about Tielemans when he was playing well for Leicester. I think that there is an absolute drop-off in his game over the last 18 months. I would acknowledge that. But I also think that could be put down to a lot of things. And I think that proper coaching in the way that I think suits him, I think that he is the right sort of player for Manchester United. But I'm open to options. I'm not saying go and sign Yuri Tielemans, Erik ten Hag, because he might look at him and go like you lot, I don't want him. I don't want that type of a player. That's absolutely fine. But we want that type of a player. We need that sort of player to come in January. It is an urgent issue. You need somebody to come in who can do the Eriksen role. And you might have 4 or 5 ideas that are different to me. There might not be anybody obvious out there, but there will be. This is where scouting is very important. We need a player to come in for 20, 30 million quid who can come in, do a job in the Eriksen role straight away and link the attack with the midfield. That's what we need to happen. Because if we don't do it, you're asking Christian Eriksen at 30, 31 years of age to play every 3 days. And we will notice it. It is a tribute to Eriksen that we notice it when he's not on the pitch. It's massively noticeable. We are so... he is so intrinsic to that side. He's the only player that can be calm on the ball and make us progress up the pitch. And we do need someone to come in. Could Donny play the Eriksen role to rest him in some games? Well, Darren, that is the big hope. You know what I think about this. I actually do think that Donny could do that role. I do. In fact, I'm going to do a video on it early next week and talk about Donny in a little bit more depth. But I do think Donny could do that role, but it's an urgent role. And what if Donny can't do that role? I don't know. Ten Hag does. Maybe Ten Hag sat there going, God, Ten Hag will be sat there going, fucking hell, I need somebody who can do that Eriksen role. I can't play him 90 minutes every 3 days for the next 9 months. And he's going to the World Cup. I can't do it. Remember, Eriksen will be going to the World Cup as well. He will be sat there knowing that. In fact, I would say that Ten Hag's number one headache is Eriksen, because he's so important to the team and he can't play him every minute of every game. So he needs someone to do that role. Fred can't do it. Fred has talents, but it's not that. Passing a football between the lines, creative. It's not what Fred's all about. Donny, he might be sat there going, Donny van der Beek's the guy who's going to do it for me. He might be sat there going, Donny van der Beek can't do this. I need someone in the market. But yeah, that and right back, I think, are number one. Spencer says we should check Unai Simon, Atletico Bilbao, 25, rated third as sweep keeper in the world. No, he's very good, Spencer. He's very, very good, Simon. Yeah, I would not have a problem with us going for him at all. As I said, there's a few out there that I like. Lafont springs to mind because he's, I think he's 6'5", 23, I think he is. His contract's up in the next couple of years. So is Kevin Trapp's contract. Again, I thought he was an interesting one. But I think what you need to do, and I might be being a bit unfair for Trapp here at Eintracht Frankfurt, we need to bring a goalkeeper in that's got the potential to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world in the next 4 or 5 years. I think that Lafont could. I think that Simon could. I think there's a couple of others could. That's what we need to go for. And, I hate to be stereotypical, but when you're talking about the great sweeper keepers of this world, they don't tend to be English. They don't. I think that we probably are better off going for somebody who is hasn't got an English passport, unless somebody comes running to mind. I think that for some reason at the moment, and I don't know why, maybe it's to do with the intensity of the Premier League, but then again, Alisson doesn't have a problem with it. It's... I don't know. It could be as simple as, I think, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of our media, the British players seem to get locked into this whole, media thing, whereas the foreign players tend to be a little bit more professional. I don't know. I think mentality as a goalkeeper is just so important, basically. Mark, Glazers fund sod all. They don't have funds for last transfer window unless they put Man United in debt, says Andy and Bruno. I didn't say that they did, Andy. I don't know what side of the bed you got out of, but I didn't say that. What I said was that the Glazers will keep spending money. I didn't say whose money they were going to spend. They will keep spending money, and they will spend money in January. I think it's logical, and I think anybody knows this, that we don't know what's actually going on with the Glazers. We don't know whether they're in talks to sell, but they need money. If they don't want to sell because this club's going to keep making them money, then they will spend money on transfers, and they will keep doing it because they've got to try and find a way to stay in post. Their best way of staying in post is Ten Hag being a revelation and winning the league, or winning the Champions League in the next couple of years. So they might try and do it. If they're going to sell, the odd thing is, if they're going to sell, they may stop spending money. But then again, if they're still going to sell, they may spend money to try and make the club more attractive. I mean, at the end of the day, if I said to you, we won't sign anybody in January, but the Glazers will sell in the summer, you'd say, let's not buy anyone in January. If I said to you, they're going to sell in the summer, but they're going to spend in January because they want to try and boost the value of the club, you're going to say spend in January. For me, I want them to spend in January because I couldn't give a shit about what the Glazers want, and I couldn't give a shit about what value they want. We need to spend in January because every transfer window, and this is what it's all about really, every transfer window is an opportunity that has to be used to sell players and to bring players in. You can't ignore the January transfer window. You can't ignore a summer transfer window. Every transfer window for Erik Ten Hag is an opportunity. And if we ignore it, we make his job harder and it takes longer. Every time that transfer window opens, you've got to be working your arse off to bring players in. You can't, let me put it like this. January transfer window opens for 31 days and United say, we're not doing any business to Erik Ten Hag, right? Erik Ten Hag says to the board, right, you need to sell Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Brandon Williams, Axel Tuanzebe, Phil Jones, and whoever else, right? There's 5, 6, 7 players you need to sell. I also need a right back, a midfielder, a striker, a centre back, and I need a goalkeeper as well to come in and compete with De Gea. So you need to sell me 5 players at least, and you need to buy me 5 players at least, and you're telling me that the January transfer window, you're not open for business. That's bloody ridiculous. That's like not opening up on Christmas Eve. What's the point in opening up on Boxing Day, really? Because you're going to sell more on Christmas Eve. United have to use the January transfer window. The only reason we don't use the January transfer window is because the Glazers don't want to spend money. We need to get out of this mentality. We've almost become subconsciously indoctrinated into Glazonomics. I do it sometimes. I said it 2 weeks ago. Well, that's it until the summer now because we won't be doing any business in January. And I'm not going to say that because all I'm doing is just assuming that these owners won't spend money in January because it's not what they like to do. Of course you've got to spend money in January. A sport, of course you can do deals in January. We're not trying to buy Leao or De Jong or Bellingham in January. We need a right back to compete with Dalot. We need a goalkeeper to compete with De Gea. We need a midfielder to be there as rotational for Eriksen, and we need a striker who is rotational as well. Those types of players you can get in January. You can't get your Bellinghams. You can't get your major signings, but we're looking for players to compete. Somebody mentioned Lema. I don't know what's happening with Lema. I presume he's going to Bayern Munich on a free next summer because he's out of contract. And I was told that there was interest in him, but he wants to go to Bayern Munich. So I think Bayern Munich are just, and it's amazing what Bayern Munich do. I mean, they just dominate monopolise the Bundesliga, and players will run their contracts down from rivals to go to them, and it's a boring league. It's a very boring league, and I wouldn't want the Premier League to be like that. I wouldn't swap it for a million years. And I know this sounds really odd, what I'm about to say, but I wouldn't want the Bundesliga. I wouldn't want Man United to be the Bayern Munich of Bundesliga. I wouldn't. We'd win the league every year, and we'd pick up all the best players. And, some people would like that because we haven't won the title in 10 years, but it matters more. It matters more. When I look at United winning the title in 99 and the years against Wenger and Mourinho and even against City when we won it, it matters because you had to compete for it. I wouldn't want what Bayern Munich have got. I wouldn't. Winning it every year and taking everybody's best players. But it's a great position for them to be in because they end up picking up good players for free who will run their contract down at Leipzig and Dortmund to go to them. So I think Lehmer would be a good player in a Ten Hag system. He was definitely recommended to United by Rangnick. And I think maybe that's a reason United didn't go for him, but we won't go for him. I would take Lehmer, of course I would. Who do you think we could sign in January? This is Darren and Andy. It's not a problem at all. It's not a problem at all. He says, I hope they're not going to do the Barcelona funding method. Look, I use Tielemans as an example because I think he fits the profile of being an Eriksen, ploy, rotational player. I also think he's got a lot of potential in him. I think if Tielemans went and worked under Klopp or Arteta or Ten Hag, his game would go up. I think when you're looking to buy players, there are players in the Premier League where you go, if you got that player under a Klopp or a Ten Hag or an Arteta or a Conte or whoever, top managers, they will go up a level. And, one player that jumps out to me straight away, but you can think of some as well. I think Ruben Neves. I think James Ward-Prowse. I think Bruno Guimaraes is doing a great job under Eddie Howe. I imagine what he'd do under Pep Guardiola. There are players, and look, there's loads of them around Europe. It happens more when you bring players in from France, Germany, Portugal, Italy, the Netherlands. They come from leagues that aren't as competitive as the Premier League. They go under a good manager and they go up a level. We've seen it happen countless times with people like Mo Salah and De Bruyne, etc. And you've got to look at that. I never look at players and go, well, they're okay for Southampton, but they can't play for United. I look at the fact that, well, they're playing with players that aren't as good. They're playing in a coaching system that probably isn't as good. Training with better players Monday to Friday makes you a better player on a Saturday. Being trained by a better coach makes you a better player as well. So I look at Tielemans and I think, there is a player that can go up a level there. But there will be others. There will be others. And the type of player I think we will buy in January makes January very attractive to Ten Hag because at right back, you could still go for Dumfries. You could still do that deal. There might be 3 or 4 other right backs you can go and get. A goalkeeper probably is a little bit... I think to get a goalkeeper in January is difficult. We can all list off goalkeepers, but it's difficult to get a goalkeeper in January because you might find a club that wants to sell, but then selling their goalkeeper halfway through, you're normally going to go for a first choice. So it's difficult, but not impossible. Striker, rotational strikers, not difficult. Midfielder, not difficult. So I think we'll be looking at right back and midfield in January. Mainly because of the things I've just said. It's an urgent issue. Mark, what I'm saying is that these players with the wages they are on and their price tag need to step up and win the league, says Mark Friedman. I disagree, Mark. I disagree on that. I think that we've overpaid. Look, if I ask someone to build me a wall and I don't check the reviews on rated reviews and I pay them 10 times what the job's worth just to get it done, and then they do a bad job, whose fault is that? The person who does the bad job or me for not doing my research? What you pay somebody is on you. What I'm trying to say is what you decide to pay somebody is on you. You can go into town today and spend £1,000 on a suit and you can get home and it might not be that good because you didn't bother to check the quality of it, the shop you're shopping in, you've overpaid, you've been mugged off basically. I can't sit there and say that because we've got the biggest wage bill in the Premier League, or one of, I don't know whether it is the biggest, that we should win the league. I don't think that, and I'll name some names here, and I'm not having a pop at them. I don't think, and in fact, I don't need to name any names. I don't think that squad's good enough to win the title. I'd be surprised if anyone thinks it is. I think Man City's good enough to win the league. I think Liverpool are good enough to win the league. I'm not sure anybody else is, but I certainly don't think Man United is. So I don't look at the wages we pay or the transfer fees we pay and say, well, we've got to win the league. I think that falls onto the owners and the CEO and the negotiators. I think where you can say that, Mark, is you can say to Richard Arnold and you can say to the Glazers and you can say to John Murtagh, Director of Football, CEO and owners, you've just spent £1 billion over the last decade. We should have won the league title. You need to go. That's where I agree with you. I don't think you can say to Harry Maguire, we spent £80 million on you and you're on 200 grand a week. We should win the title, because it's not his fault. And he's not good enough to win us a title, I don't think. So I think you're right. But that goes back to the Glazers. Like, the money they've spent, we should be winning the league. And that's what they should be saying. They don't sack anybody. If I was the Glazers and I'd spent £1 billion on players over the last 10 years, I would have sacked loads of people by now. They don't sack anyone, because they're just so out of the loop and clueless. I've said this so many times before. I'd love to sit down with the Glazers and I'd love them to say, we're gutted. We're gutted. All we want is to be successful, and we've spent all this money and we're not. They're never going to say that, because it's not the truth. Because I would say, and you would say, if you're so locked in on this club being successful, how can you spend £1 billion and keep spending £1 billion on people who are shit at their job? Like, clearly, you've not sacked anybody. I don't think they've ever sacked anybody in their whole time here. It's a big clue that they don't really care about the football club. They don't care about the team. They just want to do enough to keep the money coming in. Anyhow, we could talk about that. We could talk about that. What's the plan for today? The chart show's coming out later. Top 10 players of the week. Who will be number one? Martinez was number one last week. Will he be the first player of the season to stay number one for 2 weeks in a row? The chart show is coming out a little bit later. But if you want a bit of football fix, there's no Man United game this weekend. But I am doing Man City trip to Molineux, 12:30 today, live on That's Football. So we'll be chatting football for the next couple of hours from 12:30, watching a match. Hopefully Wolves can get a result there. And tonight at 7:30, for an hour and a half, I am on TalkSport National Radio. It's on their YouTube channel as well. You can call in, taking all your calls on all the football topics. So make sure you tune in for that. Also want to say thanks to everyone who's a member. Thank you for joining the Members Club. Don't forget to check out that video on the goalkeeper situation. And we've got some really good, different type of content coming up for you over the next couple of weeks, which I think you're absolutely going to love. So please do subscribe to the channel. I think you're going to bloody love it, to be honest with you. And don't forget, if you want to, you can get the sort of thing that I'm wearing here right now. We do ship worldwide. T-shirts, hoodies, worldwide delivery, all sorts of sizes. Personal favourites at the moment is obviously this beauty. Links in the video description. United Stand Shopify to get hold of that. And as I said, we do deliver worldwide. Thanks everyone for watching. You can join me on That's Football at 12:30 for the Man City trip to Wolves. And don't forget to check out the chart show today. Fantastic show as ever. You're brilliant, community. Love out, and I'll speak to you in a bit.